The hum of cicadas fills the evening air as the sun dips below the treetops, spilling molten gold across my backyard. My land, 3 peaceful acres of rich, red Georgia soil, stretches behind my house, untouched except for the small vegetable garden I tend near the fence line. I moved here 2 years ago for the quiet, for the space. Away from the city, away from the stairs, away from the whispered assumptions that always seem to follow a black man with success. This was supposed to be home. I gripped the handle of my spade, digging into the damp earth. Tomatoes are finally coming in strong this year, and I nod in satisfaction, wiping sweat from my brow. From my porch, my dog, Shadow, a lanky black lab, watches me with sleepy eyes. Then it happens again. The low growl of an engine. A buzzing, grating sound that vibrates through the air, growing louder, closer, until a flash of red tears across my property. An ATV. My body tenses. The vehicle roars over my grass, cutting through like it owns the place. Dust kicks up in its wake. The rider doesn't even hesitate. Blonde hair in a bob, oversized sunglasses, a pink tank top that screams suburban rebellion. She's done this before, countless times. She doesn't look at me. She never does. She just speeds past, crosses my land like it's her personal shortcut, and vanishes through the tree line where my property meets the edge of the neighborhood's private trails. I exhale slowly, rolling my shoulders. I've let it slide before. A few times, then a few more. At first, I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she didn't know this land was private.
But now?
It's intentional. And the way she ignores me, like I don't even exist? Like this land isn't mine? Shadow whines, sensing my frustration. I take a deep breath, willing myself to let it go for now. But something tells me this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I find tire tracks. Deep grooves cut into the damp earth where my grass used to be. The ATV must have come through after I went inside last night, tearing up more of my land. My fists clench at my sides. This isn't just an occasional ride, it's a routine. She's doing this daily. I squat down, running my fingers over the churned-up dirt, the crushed blades of grass. Shadow sniffs at the tracks, whining softly. I glance toward the tree line, where my property meets the neighborhood's private trails. Those trails belong to the HOA, a community I technically live next to, but am not a part of. I bought this land independently, just outside their jurisdiction. No HOA rules, no board breathing down my neck, just me and my space. And yet, somehow, one of them feels entitled to cut through my property, like it's a public road. I set my jaw and rise to my feet. I need to find out who she is. Later that day, I take a walk along the main road leading into the HOA community. The houses are pristine, big, identical 2-story homes with manicured lawns, American flags, and security cameras mounted over garages. Kids ride bikes in the cul-de-sac and golden retrievers chase tennis balls across chemically perfect grass. As I pass through, I feel the eyes. A woman walking her poodle tightens her grip on the leash, giving me a tight, forced smile. A jogger on the sidewalk glances over his shoulder at me, then speeds up. A man mowing his lawn cuts the engine, watching me for a beat too long. I know what they're thinking. He doesn't belong here. I ignore them and keep walking. I'm looking for her. The woman on the ATV. And then I see it. Parked in a driveway, next to a pearl-white Lexus SUV, sits the red ATV. And standing beside it, barking orders at a landscaper, is her. She's wearing a wide-brimmed sun hat now, but I recognize the blonde bob, the oversized sunglasses perched on her nose. Even from here, I can feel the sharpness of her presence, like a person who's used to getting their way. I step closer.
I want to hear what she's saying.
You missed a spot, she snaps, pointing at the flower bed. I told you. I want the mulch evenly spread. The landscaper, an older Latino man, nods quickly and goes back to work, shoulders hunched. She exhales loudly, shaking her head, then mutters, "Honestly, why is it so hard to find people who listen?" My stomach tightens. I step forward, clearing my throat. "Excuse me." She turns, and the moment she sees me, Her expression shifts. Her lips tighten. Her chin lifts. And then her voice, sickly sweet. "Oh," she says, tilting her head. "Can I help you?" I already know this conversation isn't going to go well. The next afternoon, I'm ready. I stand near the back of my property, phone in hand, camera rolling. I hear the ATV before I see it, an arrogant growl cutting through the quiet. Then there she is. She doesn't slow this time. She's testing me, pushing harder. Her ATV tears through the grass, wheels chewing up the earth. I step forward, holding up a hand. "Hey." She barely flinches. I plant my feet in her path. "You're trespassing." At the last second, she veers left, barely missing me. The wind from her speed tugs at my clothes. My pulse pounds as she circles back, stopping just at the edge of my property. The ATV rumbles beneath her, kicking up dust. She pulls off her sunglasses and smirks. "Excuse me?" I take a step closer. This is private property. I lift my phone, making sure she sees the recording light. "I need you to stop riding through here." She tilts her head, mock innocence dripping from her expression. "Oh, sweetie, I think you're confused." My jaw tightens. Confused about what? She gestures vaguely at my land. "This? It's community property. We've all been using it for years. If you'd been here longer, you'd know that."
Lies.
Blatant, smug lies. I clench my teeth. "I own this land. It's on my deed." She waves a dismissive hand. "That's not how it works here. The HOA considers it an easement for residents." She places a perfectly manicured hand on her chest. "I'm the HOA president, by the way, and I know for a fact that our community has always had access." There it is. The power play. She's banking on the HOA's influence, on the unspoken rules that favor people like her. She's used to winning, used to people backing down. Not today. I take a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. That's not how property law works. This land isn't part of the HOA. I lift my phone again. "And I have proof you're trespassing." Her smirk fades for half a second before she catches herself. Then she laughs, shaking her head. "Oh, honey." She leans forward, voice low and condescending. "Do you really think the HOA will take your side?" The way she says your drips with meaning. My stomach clenches. She sees me as an outsider. Someone who doesn't belong in her neighborhood. I tighten my grip on the phone. "If you don't stop, I'll call the sheriff." Her expression turns icy. "You do that." She slides her sunglasses back on. "But don't be surprised when we start enforcing other community rules. We wouldn't want any code violations, would we?"
Threats.
I don't respond. I just keep recording as she revs her engine and speeds away, throwing a smirk over her shoulder. Gathering allies. That night, I do my research. Turns out, she's been HOA president for 6 years, and from what I dig up online, she runs it like a queen ruling her kingdom. Multiple complaints about selective enforcement. People getting fined for the smallest infractions, overgrown grass, trash cans left out 5 minutes too long. And, surprise, surprise, the fines are always aimed at people who don't fit the HOA's pristine image.
People like me.
I make some calls. Turns out, I'm not the only one with problems. A black couple 3 streets over got harassed over their too bright front door color, while a Latino family was forced to remove their basketball hoop because it was unsightly. But the rich white residents? They do whatever they want. I meet with the couple, Maya and Darius, over coffee. They're hesitant at first, but nod when I tell them about the ATV. She does it because she knows she can, Maya says. She loves power, Darius adds. And no one ever stands up to her. Well, I say, setting my phone on the table. That's about to change. We hatch a plan. The next morning, I install motion sensor cameras on my property, hidden but perfectly positioned to catch her in the act. I won't just have footage. I'll have undeniable, time-stamped proof. She thinks she's untouchable. She's about to find out she's wrong. The next day, I don't wait on my porch. I stand in the middle of my property, arms crossed, right in her path. This time, she sees me from a distance. The ATV slows slightly, as if she's debating her move, but then she does exactly what I expect. She speeds up, barreling toward me like she's daring me to move. I don't. At the last second, she swerves, stopping so close that the smell of gasoline fills my lungs. She yanks off her sunglasses, eyes burning with amusement. Still out here playing landowner? I keep my voice steady. Not playing. This is my property. She clicks her tongue, shaking her head like I'm a child. I told you before. This land has always been open for community use. You're the only one making a problem out of it.
I don't blink.
That's so. She smirks. Oh, honey, people like you always think the rules don't apply, don't you? There it is. The quiet part, almost said out loud. I tighten my grip on my phone. Actually, I think rules apply to everyone. She laughs, loud and mocking. Well, that's adorable. But let me spell it out for you. She leans forward. You're new here. No one is going to take your side. Not the HOA. Not the sheriff. And certainly not your little complaints. She tilts her head, grinning. So, why don't you do yourself a favor and stop making a fuss? Because if you keep pushing, well, let's just say property violations can be very expensive. And I know for a fact you don't want trouble with the HOA. She thinks she's won. I let the silence stretch, watching the satisfaction in her eyes as she waits for me to fold. Then I pull out my phone and hit play. The big reveal. Her own voice rings out, loud and clear. People like you always think the rules don't apply, don't you? Her smirk twitches. I swipe to another clip, this one showing her veering toward me at full speed, barely missing me before threatening me with HOA fines. Her face pales. I step closer, keeping my voice even. See, I had a feeling you'd try to lie your way out of this. So I installed security cameras. I point to the trees, where tiny blinking lights are barely visible. Every single time you trespassed, it's all on video. Time-stamped. Clear as day. She grips the handlebars tighter. You can't record me on my own property. This isn't your property, I say smoothly. And filming criminal trespassing? That's perfectly legal. I pull out another trump card, a printed email from the county property records office. And just in case you're still confused, here's confirmation from the county. This land? Never part of the HOA. Never an easement. You've been trespassing and you knew it. Her lips part, but no words come out. The power shift is palpable. I take one final step. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop coming onto my land. You're going to tell your little HOA buddies that this property is not community space. And if I catch you here again, I tilt my head. I'll be sending these videos to the sheriff's office for a criminal trespassing charge. Her throat bobs. The bravado is cracking fast. But she's not done yet. The last attempt. She forces a laugh, but it's thinner now, stretched tight over panic. Oh, come on. You wouldn't actually do that. The sheriff is a friend of mine. I smile. Then I guess you wouldn't mind me sharing this footage with the local news. Her entire body stiffens. I let the words sink in. I bet they'd love a story about an HOA president harassing property owners. You know how people eat that up these days. Imagine the headlines. I pause, then add, oh, and I've already backed up the footage online. So don't even think about trying to get rid of it. Silence. Her fingers tremble against the handlebars. She's unraveling, scrambling for control, but it's gone. She knows it. And she knows I know it. I cross my arms. So, what's it gonna be? Her jaw clenches. Her hands tighten. For a second, I think she's going to snap back, throw one last insult. Instead, she slams her sunglasses back on, jerks the ATV into gear, and speeds off for good. She's gone, but I know better than to believe it's over. People like her don't just back down. And sure enough, by the next morning, the retaliation begins. A bright orange HOA violation notice is plastered to my front door. Code violation. Unkempt property. Fine, $500. I stare at the crisp white paper, heart pounding. My lawn is perfectly maintained. I mow it twice a week. Meanwhile, a few streets over, I've seen her friend's yard with weeds creeping over the sidewalk untouched. This isn't about property maintenance. This is payback. I crumple the notice and head inside, but before I can even sit down, an email pings on my phone. From HOA Compliance Office. Subject: Formal complaint against your residence. I open it. Apparently, my fence height is out of regulation, my trash bins are unsightly, and my house paint is not in line with the community aesthetic. I don't even belong to the HOA.
But she doesn't care about that.
She's trying to drown me in red tape, hoping I'll fold. I exhale slowly, refusing to let the frustration win. She's predictable. She tried intimidation and failed. Now she's weaponizing bureaucracy, but I came prepared. The counterattack. I fire off an email to the county zoning office with copies of my deed, security footage, and a very pointed question. Can a homeowners association find someone who is not a member? Less than an hour later, I get a response. Subject: Unenforceable HOA fines.
No.
The HOA has zero jurisdiction over your property. Any attempt to enforce penalties against you is unlawful. If this continues, you may file a complaint with the county. Bingo. I forward the email to the HOA's official inbox, CCing every single board member. Then, for good measure, I include note. Attached is video evidence of HOA president trespassing on my property multiple times. If I receive one more fraudulent fine or complaint, I will escalate this matter legally and publicly. Panic mode. The response comes within minutes. Not an email this time, but a furious knocking at my door. I open it to find Karen herself, red-faced, her carefully curated suburban calm completely shattered. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she hisses. I lean against the doorframe. "Stopping your illegal harassment." She throws up her hands. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a misunderstanding." I fold my arms. "Funny, because I have a county official telling me your fines are fraudulent." Her lips press together. "Look, if you just..." I hold up a finger. "And let's not forget the security footage of you repeatedly trespassing." I tilt my head. Should I send that to the sheriff next? Her breathing turns shallow. The arrogance cracks further. For the first time, she looks afraid. The unraveling. And then, the moment I don't expect. Behind her, a car pulls into my driveway. A sheriff's department SUV. Karen stiffens as a deputy steps out. Middle-aged, serious-faced, no nonsense. He gives me a nod, then turns to her. "Ma'am, we received a complaint about repeated trespassing on private property." Her mouth opens and closes. "That's ridiculous." The deputy holds up a hand. "We've already reviewed the security footage the property owner provided." He eyes her. It's pretty clear-cut. Karen's face drains of color. This is a misunderstanding. He doesn't look convinced. "Be that as it may, you're officially being issued a trespassing warning. If you set foot on this property again without permission, it'll be criminal trespass charges." She spins on me, desperate. "You don't have to do this. I cut her off. "You've been warned." She shakes her head, rage and humiliation battling behind her eyes. But she's trapped. The power she wielded so effortlessly is now gone. And she knows it. The collapse. Over the next 2 weeks, everything falls apart for her. The HOA board, after seeing the legal liability she nearly dragged them into, forces her to resign. Her rich neighbors, the same ones who once laughed at her jokes and entertained her pettiness, start distancing themselves. And then the final nail in the coffin. A local news segment runs a story on HOA corruption and racial bias. The report highlights targeted harassment of non-white homeowners, featuring interviews with Maya, Darius, and others. It even includes blurred snippets of my footage. Karen's name isn't mentioned outright, but everyone in the community knows who it's about. Her social circle crumbles. Her influence vanishes. And just like that, the queen of the HOA is nothing. I step onto my porch, coffee in hand, and take a deep breath. For the first time since I moved in, the air feels light, peaceful. No more revving ATVs. No more threats. No more Karen. Her house, once the centerpiece of the neighborhood, now sits eerily quiet. The driveway, where she once held HOA meetings like royal decrees, is empty. No visitors. No friendly waves. She's been officially removed from the HOA board. Her influence?
Gone.
Her reputation?
Destroyed.
And the final blow? Public humiliation. The news segment did more than expose her tactics. It made her a cautionary tale. Neighbors whisper about her in hushed tones at the mailbox. The same people who once cheered her on now avoid eye contact when she steps outside. The woman who once thrived on control can barely show her face. And then, the rumor spreads. She's selling her house. Apparently, she can't handle the shame. I won't lie, I smile when I hear that one. The HOA crumbles. Without Karen, the HOA starts losing its grip. Neighbors who were once too afraid to speak up start challenging the unfair fines and ridiculous rules. And when Maya and Darius rally enough support to vote in a new board, the entire power structure changes. The targeted harassment?
Gone.
The selective enforcement? Over. People who once silently suffered under Karen's reign now stand together. And for the first time, this place actually feels like a community. A shift in perspective. One afternoon, I find an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside is a short, handwritten note. I should have spoken up sooner.
I see that now.
I'm sorry for what you went through.
You were right to fight back.
It's unsigned. But it doesn't matter. Because for once, someone who stood by and watched is finally acknowledging the truth. It's not an apology from Karen, but it's something. The final victory. A week later, I watch as a moving truck pulls up in front of Karen's house. She stands by the curb, arms crossed, sunglasses on, face tight with humiliation. We lock eyes. For a moment, I see something I never expected, regret. Not for what she did, but for losing. She climbs into her car without a word, speeding off for the last time. And as she disappears down the street, I exhale. Not in relief, but in victory. Peace restored. That evening, I sit on my porch, watching the sun dip below the trees. My land, my home, is finally mine. No more battles. No more threats.
Just peace.
And for the first time since moving here, I know I belong.